So Forever Cinematic brings you Yuletide greetings and the chill of terror as we take a special look at the 1974 horror classic, Black Christmas. In the college town of Bedford, the residents of sorority house Pi Kappa Sig prepare for the festive season. But unknown to them, an unwelcome guest has begun to lurk in their attic while placing deranged, obscene phone calls to the young ladies. Meanwhile, sorority sister Jess falls into conflict with her pianist boyfriend Peter when she reveals that she is pregnant, but that she does not want to have the child, which leads Peter into a self-destructive, downward spiral. Soon the town residents begin to worry over friends and family having gone missing as the police organize search parties. But soon Lieutenant Fuller becomes directly involved in the crazed phone calls to the sorority house. As more of her friends secretly fall victim to this psychotic intruder, Jess must help the police track down the phone calls, but the deceptive truth will certainly lead her to a very horrific holiday. So Black Christmas, directed by Bob Clark, was released in late 1974 in the United States and Canada, and this Canadian production was produced on a budget of $620,000 from a script written by Roy Moore with a few rewrites supposedly done by director Clark himself later on, adding in a lot of the qualities that really makes this film stand out so very strongly, trading off a lot of the graphicness for much more subtle qualities, and adding a lot of the humor and levity that really kind of humanizes the characters and really brings a great balance to the film overall. And Roy Moore had been inspired by a story of a series of murders that happened in Montreal, Quebec, Canada around the Christmas season. And it's very interesting to examine Black Christmas as a very strong precursor to two other horror films that are very notable, such as John Carpenter's Halloween and When a Stranger Calls, because Black Christmas is almost sort of a prototype of the slasher genre, kind of using a lot of the elements that you would see in both of those other films. Certainly a lot of the elements of a crazed killer and all these different things very much are prototypical of the slasher genre. And of course the whole thing of a deranged killer being in the house and making very disturbing phone calls is very much the starting out premise of When a Stranger Calls. And just the fact of the matter is, what Bob Clark does with this film is just absolutely impressive to no end in my view, because I just love a horror film that does what this film does and builds up so many different multi-layered dimensional qualities and balances different tones and different types of things in its storylines and characters as well to bring a very thick and meaty type of horror film that still has a fantastic pace to it, and also so many great directing qualities by Bob Clark himself, that his direction is so tightly focused in this film that it never wavers for a second, never has a stray moment, or doesn't fall off course. It's always so very much on track every single moment that's moving forward with the editing of this film, the pacing overall, everything with the storytelling, and all the tension this film builds up is so perfectly executed that Bob Clark is just a master of this sort of thing, that it's just so interesting that a lot of the stuff he did later in his career, even into the 80s, was very much comedy-based. And even then, 9 years later, he made A Christmas Story, which is one of the most beloved, lighthearted type of Christmas films ever made. Meanwhile, he did one of these films, which is the most terrifying Christmas films that you've ever seen in your life. And it's just fantastic that this is such a fantastically multi-talented type of director to have that much of a range in his filmography, that take the darkest elements of Christmas and the most beloved, heartwarming elements of Christmas within a 10-year span of his filmography is absolutely impressive to no end. And just what he does with Black Christmas and every quality that he exudes with his directions film, using a very low budget too. It's like there's not a lot of money that they had to put in this film. $620,000, even in 1970s money, is not a terribly big budget in certain ways, but man, do they just make everything works so well in this film that you don't have any replacement for talent, that even if you have a low budget, if you have a very talented director to push the talent forward, the skill of direction and all the other filmmaking qualities are really going to show forth in how he directs everything, how he makes the film look so rock solid in his visuals. Everything he does as a director here is completely perfect and spot on. Every single beat in this film, I think he hits it off magnificently. And it's very interesting, the depiction of the killer in this film, because the filmmaking tricks and techniques used and everything that's done to give you into the point of view of this highly disturbed killer is just completely unnerving and jarring. Just that point of view camera angle with that big fisheye lens and the very sort of jittery and nervous type of camera work just gets you right into that psychotic mindset of this killer that just gets you tipping over into the deranged, unhinged, just erratic type of behavior that just, it gets you so much on edge. Every single moment that you have this killer either going completely mental or just creeping through the shadows in this film, every time there's just a hint of this character, this killer in the film, it just wraps you up in so many knots, gets the hairs standing on end. Everything that they do and use with this character to really just create that presence and create that depth into the psyche of this absolutely insane type of character is very impressive. That they even create a special camera rig so the camera operator could have a lot of range of movement, to have this sort of shoulder harness to allow the cameraman to kind of climb up the truss up in the sorority house and do all these different actions and still have a certain freedom to do what he had to do. Is very impressive that they be able to push technology a little bit further to accommodate the needs of the filmmaking techniques needed to make the most impactful type of movie possible. And just what they do with those damn horribly disturbing phone calls in this film, the approach that they took, having 3 different people be the schizophrenic voices of this killer, between actor Nick Mancuso, an unnamed actress, and director Bob Clark himself, was entirely immensely effective, because every time one of these phone calls comes in the film, it is just absolutely unnerving as living hell. Just like you're right there in the moment with these characters, and the execution of how the cinematography works in those scenes and everything else really just gets you so tightly into the moment, into the tension of those scenes. Everything that they do when those phone calls hit is just intensely disturbing and completely horrific in so many ways. It just is that element that pushes the tension of the film forward and just wraps up the suspense to unimaginable levels. It is the thing that just really pushes this film forward in such a fantastic type of way. And starting off talking about the fantastic cast of Black Christmas here with the lead actress of Olivia Hussey, who supposedly joined the film and took the part of Jess after a visit to her psychic, who told her it'd be very good for her career to do so. And whether it was or not, it was a fantastic addition to this cast, because I think Olivia Hussey puts forth an absolutely amazing performance here, adding so many different types of qualities to the character of Jess to create a character that is much more mature beyond her years, because it's a character that's in college, early 20s or whatnot, but feels like such a very developed and mature adult woman here that has a lot of very heavy subject matter, that when she tells her boyfriend Peter that she is pregnant and she wants to get an abortion, and they're talking about very heavy relationship matters, about various other things, and just it's something that Olivia Hussey carries so perfectly in this film, with that great weight of maturity that she brings forth, a certain sense of sophistication with how she carries herself, handles herself. She feels like she's a 40-year-old actress portraying a part as a 24-year-old actress here, just adding so much of a grace and elegance to her performance here that you just feel that this is a actress that has a wealth of talent that is showing it so early on, and bringing so much of a different quality into this character that is not so typical of sort of a horror movie heroine here that's not so sort of typical type of teenager or young adult or whatnot. It feels like a very mature type of character here that she carries forth on such a fantastic level, on such an effortless level too, that every single scene that she has dealing with the drama of this character and with Peter are just so perfectly toned out and just absolutely fantastically acted. But she also handles so much of this film with the terror of it impeccably well that you can just see the absolute terror and just the wrenching type of thing on her face every single moment of this film where something terrifying is starting to creep up upon her, where there is those horrifying phone calls or there's just something else going on in the film. She just sells it as a complete seasoned pro in this film that Olivia Hussey hadn't been in a horror film before and really never really watched them because she got too terrified by them, but she goes in this film and hits a living hell out of it. She does a fantastic job in this film on every single level here, bringing forth again the developed maturity of the character with her performance overall and just handling the terror of this film on such an amazing type of level. Just every single second you feel it as deeply, rawly, and viscerally genuine as possible. She is bringing forth a fantastic performance here that just sells every single quality of her character, even the light moments in the film when she is interacting with her friends and just having those moments there. Everything that she does feels like such a fantastically talented person, stretching the range on such a magnificent canvas here. She does a fantastic performance here on every single level that I could go on and on about her performance because there's just so much depth and detail and just so much that she puts forth in the fiber and depth of this character on every single level. I think Olivia Hussey is a fantastic actress, and she'd also return to the horror genre, playing the mother of Norman Bates in Psycho 4, doing an equally amazing performance there as well. But just the fact of the matter is, in this film, she shows an amazing range and a depth of talent that you don't terribly get in a lot of horror films. But the fact of the matter is, she brings it absolutely positively. And you also got great actress here in Margot Kidder in playing a very interesting character here that is very much sort of very attitudinal and very spunky and very spirited, and also kind of drunk through most of the film, which is knowing what Margot Kidder went through with all her substance abuse. You kind of have to start wondering if she was acting or was it terribly genuine. But the fact of the matter is, Margot Kidder adds a lot of great qualities into this film as a very lively and very interesting character here that just adds certain moments of humor and a lot of moments of very erratic conflict too, but it's still a fantastic character that she portrays as Barb in this film, just adding a lot of the qualities that she really just puts forth on a great level here. But you also have the magnificent John Saxon here stepping into the role of Lieutenant Fuller here, which is again sort of a precursor to his role in A Nightmare on Elm Street, portraying a very similar character with the same rock-solid, charismatic qualities that you absolutely know you're going to get from John Saxon every time he steps in front of a camera. I think what he does in this film adds, again, that gravity, that granite type of reliability and solidness that you really need from someone in this type of role, portraying a very level-headed and very intelligent type of police lieutenant that just brings forth a certain confidence that you want from that type of figure in a film like this. That there are certain moments that come up in the film after some of those disturbing phone calls that Jess has to sort of suffer through. Lieutenant Fuller gets back on the phone and he kind of feels like that calming type of figure in the film at certain points in time, that he does add a little bit more of that anchor back into a more comfortable type of zone for the character of Jess. And you couldn't ask for a better actor than John Saxon to be that type of rock in the film. But talking about another amazing actor in this film is Kier, who many people would know in the film 2001: A Space Odyssey, but man, does he put on a fantastic performance. Again, on the same level of Olivia Hussey here, that he plays a much more edgy type of character here, that everything he does with the character of Peter is just, it's so deeply absorbed into what he's doing here, into every fiber of his acting ability, brings forth such a deep character here with a lot of psychological things conflicting in his mind and everything, that the first moment that we get introduced to the character over the phone, you hear that this guy has been without sleep for 4 days working on his music, coming up to this recital and everything. This is a very dedicated and driven type of character that will push himself to extremes mentally and physically to achieve something. So it's very much a guy who does, again, go to extremes for certain things and is very strained mentally at this point. And when you see a lot of these other things come in, like when he's talking to Jess, finding out that she's pregnant, then she says she wants an abortion, even though he's very much against that. He wants to marry this woman, wants to start a family with her, but all these things start coming into conflict. Once he learns about that, it starts affecting him negatively. He ends up trashing his own piano because he absolutely ruins himself in that recital, and then he starts radically trying to change his life, wants to run off and marry her and change all their plans and everything, which is very much in conflict with what Jess wants to do. She wants to perform and go on with her life as she plans with it, while Peter is much more, again, erratic, volatile type of person that really shows, again, that violent edge when he's bashing his piano and everything. This is a guy that just goes to extremes here, and you can see why the film builds this guy in a sort of ominous type of fashion, that he does have a similar unhinged quality that we're seeing with the killer in this film. Very much is a very interesting type of way how they build this character and develop him, add a little bit of sense of doubt and tinge of darkness with this character, that you can see that various moments you're not entirely certain what to make with this guy, because he seems like he could be very threatening, and Kier Dullea just brings so much to this role. The weight that he has with every moment of his performance, again, adding a lot of nervous energy and an edgy quality to him that just adds so much overall to the dimension of the character of Peter here. Is very much, almost, I would say, could win awards if it was a much more higher profile type of film. You could definitely look at his performance and see a magnificent type of effort put forth with what he does here, taking this material and just wrapping it up on such a deep and emotional type of level. There's a deep psychological, unhinged quality here that just aids in the film's tone and attention overall, and just the complexities of that relationship between Peter and Jess here is very much focused through this character to create that turbulence, that conflict overall. I think Kier Dullea's performance in the film is absolutely a magnificent piece of work here, that, again, this is a horror film that adds different types of qualities to its layout and everything, that it does have fantastic moments of levity in it, and it has the fantastic, terrifying horror, but at the center of it, you have this very interesting story here between these two characters dealing with this very heavy subject matter that is very adult and has so many different complexities of emotion and psychosis and everything. It's not something you'd see in a lot of horror films, especially something you would is regarded as like a prototype towards the slasher genre. This is something that is very deep and complex in the film that just adds so much more of that core weight to it overall, that you get a dimension with these characters, that a depth overall that just creates so much more for this film, just adds so much to the make of it overall, that just creates that drama, creates that tension. All of it weaves in and out of all the other elements that are present in the film, and you couldn't ask for better actors to step up and create these characters and just bring something so much more impressive to them overall. And like I said, the film adds in certain moments of levity to really kind of humanize a lot of the characters, and to really kind of make them endearing and charming and make you feel for them when all the death starts happening in the film. And you got someone like the character of Mrs. Mack, who's very fun in the film, when you see her kind of sifting through things and finding her little hidden bottles of booze and having these little vulgar type of moments in the film that really kind of just makes her a different kind of endearing type of character as well. And Margot Kidder's character of Barb really has a bit of a fun in this film, playing a bit of a joke on the character of Sergeant Nash in the film, which this time around I was laughing my ass off at it because the character of Sergeant Nash really kind of played up as a little bit of a flake in this film, a bit dim in certain places here, but the fact of the matter is this film really just hits those moments off really well, and in that regard you can see how Bob Clark really kind of transitioned into comedy very well. But the fact of the matter is it adds those balancing elements that'll really kind of have a lot of heavy stuff, real heavy tension type of stuff going on in the film, and it'll kind of gradually transition into a bit of a fun moment, but then it'll slam back into a much more dramatic type of beat in the film in a very solid type of way that doesn't feel jarring. It just feels like that's how the film can naturally flow from one moment of one type of tone to another one and still have those things really kind of organically balanced between one another to create a very human type of story here, that you see all the different facets, that everything isn't so heavy all the time. There is that levity in the film, kind of break the tension and really kind of create a bit more of a endearing, sympathetic type of cast of characters here that you can really feel for. So a lot of the different things that are used to balance the tones here really kind of feed into everything else to make you care about the characters, really kind of gets the tone alleviated at the right moments in time, so it's not so heavy. So when it gets into heavy stuff, it feels so much more important that it's not there all the time. It comes in and aids the film when it needs it the most. So it's a very good type of balancing act that Bob Clark really kind of accentuated in this film. But indeed, the most important aspect of Black Christmas is the execution of the horror in this film, and having a horror film set at Christmas really does work very well for this film, because that cold, wintry type of feel just adds to the somber type of sort of isolated atmosphere the film has, that just that sort of brisk, brutal type of wintry breeze and everything that kind of mixes into the sound design of the film. All of it just works so well to create the atmosphere this film has in so many cases, that just brings that sense of bitter, freezing cold, really just kind of soaks itself into the fiber of the film so much and just aids it overall, and just the warmth of the holiday juxtaposed against the freezing cold and the terror of the film just has some very inspired moments in this film, such as the scene where you have the killer stalking up the stairs, going to attack Barb, while you have this wonderful carolers outside, and just the juxtaposition of the wonderful angelic voices of those kids against the absolute terror and blood of the scene. And just, it's absolutely brilliant what Bob Clark does visually, stylistically, and artistically in that sequence. The visuals of it are so magnificent when you see the crystals and the hand coming up and the sharp bludgeoning type of stabs that the character endures in that scene. Everything that is done is just a masterstroke of brilliance in that sequence, and a lot of the kills in the film just have a great sort of startling quality, but also shies away from the graphicness. But there is that sense of subtlety along with a sense of shockingness too, that just has that great balance again, that everything does kind of jump out and startle you and scare the hell out of you and get you right up with your nerves on the edge of the seat and everything. But it still doesn't go for a lot of blood and gore. It still puts forth a great artistic restraint there to have Bob Clark execute a lot of these kills, a lot of these horrific moments in the film with so much a fantastic sharp edge to them and such a great artistic flair as well. It just executes the horror in this film fantastically, along with just how he does the psychology of this film and how it feeds into, again, the suspense, the tension this film has to offer. It's just a magnificent execution of it overall. And as I said, even though the film does have a fairly low budget, the talent pushes the medium of the film forward, because the cinematography utilized in this film, I very much was impressed with what they did with probably not a resources to do a whole lot with, but you still get some fantastic shots in this film. Like I said earlier, the visuals in this film are very rock solid, and you see a certain artistic eye at play here with a lot of the very tight shots and a couple of zoom-ins in this film, really kind of heightening the tension, along with a lot of the long takes this film has that just kind of builds up the tension, builds up that nervous type of feeling you have, electrifying through your body in these sequences to just get you right up on the edge of everything. It's just a magnificent way how this film really does use, again, a lot of subtlety in the cinematography, and uses a lot of very interesting compositions to create a certain claustrophobic sense in this house. It does feel like can be a warm and inviting, comfortable home, but when they shoot it in certain ways, where they're shooting through certain things, having certain things block off the characters in the foreground and everything, where you're shooting through the rails of the staircase and various other things that really kind of cut up the frame here and there, or just create some different things in the foreground and background contrast. It just creates a very interesting type of visual that, again, creates claustrophobic sense. Just everything they do with the cinematography and the lighting to create very moody type of visuals, and just create certain shadows too that just, again, you get a horror film that can use shadows in a fantastic type of way. You've got a very, very good, effective type of horror film when they ramp up that suspense and you don't know what's hiding there in the darkness. You get very, very, very good scenes in this film that become iconic and synonymous with this film, such as near the climax of this film, when you have Jess finding out that the calls are coming from inside the house, and she believes her friends are still upstairs, alive. She goes up there, finds their dead bodies, and you get that eye peering through the crack of the door, just chilling as living hell, seeing this one psychotic eye bugging out at you from the darkness. Just amazing type of stuff. Just the simplest, subtlest things create the most effective imagery in this film. And Bob Clark and the cinematographer use so many different things between the lighting, the compositions, and just so much imaginative type of stuff to just make a fantastically looking horror film that still has certainly its low budget 70s aesthetics, and there's certainly dated fashion in this film between the clothing and the hair and everything, but it's just something about this type of horror film being made in the 70s, set in the 70s, and having that aesthetic, that feel, and the technology as well at the time, that certainly you make the film today, which there was a remake in 2006, which I never bothered to see, but the fact of the matter is, you make this film the same way as you did back then. You got caller ID now, you know who's calling. You can trace phone calls a lot easier today than you did back in the mid-70s, where you see in those sequences, you got the guy running through all these corridors, running from one machine to the next, all these big complex mechanical devices in the phone company and everything, trying to trace down the call, and the calls have to be dragged out longer and longer each time they get further along to the trace of the thing. It's a much more different type of feel and aesthetic that you have from a film that was made in that period of time to create a different type of tension, different type of way to tell the story that is a little less conventional than what you would have with a modern version of the film. It just has that certain appeal, that certain charm to it, that certain simplicity, a little bit more of an analog type of feel to it overall, that the way they shoot the film and the way everything, the elements of the film weave into it, all that type of stuff, it makes it for a very good, solid film to be dated in that type of way, because everything that it uses that wouldn't be as relevant today makes it much more of the effective film that it is in the ways it has to be. So it's like, I just like that it is a 1970s horror film that uses all these things in retrospect better than they would be able to be used today. You'd have to get a lot more creative and change it up a whole lot more to be able to do a lot of the same things that they did in this film in 1974. It's just a fantastic type of thing that I like that quality of the film. But the fact of the matter is, Bob Clark executed and created a horror film that is still immensely effective today, because it still got up under my skin, and I raise my opinion of this film even further, that it's been quite a while since I've seen this before, and man, is it still damn effective in every type of way that Bob Clark put forth with this film. Everything he did, with what he added to the script and how he directed and executed every element of the filmmaking of this film, plus putting together such a solid and excellently talented cast. You couldn't ask for a better horror film to really kind of make use of everything that it had at its disposal and just make it work on such a magnificent type of level. I think that he created such a very tightly paced and greatly woven together horror film, again with so many great deep layers to it as well, and such a fantastically psychotic type of killer here that never gets revealed, even though writer Roy Moore had intended in the original script to have the killer revealed. Bob Clark decided to go the other route, and when Roy Moore finally did see the film, he decided that was the right decision to go for, because it made it so much more effective and created that great ending in the film that lulls you in that false sense of security where it feels a little anticlimactic, but you wait it out and see how things go on for the next couple of minutes, and you find out the killer is still alive. Who you thought the killer actually wasn't him at all, and you just, final moments when you have. I love horror films that leave you on that type of note. Something like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch doesn't leave you on a happy note. It leaves you on a terrifying note that leaves you chilled as you walk out of the theater or whatnot. When you finally hit those end credits, you still feel a sense of dread and everything. Man, what they do was absolutely perfect. Bob Clark was an inspired director here, making all the right moves every single step of the way, and the film grossed about $4 million off of its $620,000 budget here, so it's like, certainly was a hit, and someone like Margot Kidder really didn't think the film was going to be a hit, but it ended up being that and maintained a cult following through all of these years since then, and still heralded as a very good horror film, one of the classics of the genre that goes a little bit overlooked and undersung in a certain way, but you definitely should see this film if you have not, because it's a fantastically tense and effective and very dimensional type of horror film that will add a lot to your viewing experience. So, Black Christmas, a very interesting entry here that I did intend to have done last year until I ran out of time and decided, like, I got some time here after all the Star Wars stuff to finally cover this film, and it's like, it's one of the best. It's one of the best horror films out there that you could definitely rank it among like the top 50 horror films of all time. From whoever's list, if you aggregated a list from a whole bunch of different experts on the genre, I think it should definitely have a place among the best of all time, because it also inspired and had influence throughout the genre for many years to come. And like I said, there was a remake made, and I didn't bother to see it because I wasn't interested in it. But if you have seen the remake, certainly invite you to post your comments below about that film along with this 1974 original. I implore you to do so. So it's been a very interesting exploration here, and a little bit of the darker side of the holiday season. So what would you else expect from me here? So, do something a little bit counter-programming, a little unconventional, but still fantastic type of film to explore on the merriest of holidays throughout the whole year. So, again, your thumbs up on the video if you have enjoyed my review of Black Christmas, and you're sharing the links around social media to invite people to watch as well is highly, highly appreciated. And hopefully probably get another video or two done before the end of this year, but we shall see. But the fact of the matter is, covered a fantastic film here, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and we'll post your comments below about Bob Clark's 1974 original down below, and hope you all have a very happy and merry and safe holiday season. So whatever denomination you celebrate, if you celebrate any at all, still hope you have a fantastic end of the year, and I'll see you soon before the end of 2015. So, thanks so much, guys. Take care, and bye-bye.